You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
Just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse for Rachel Zegler, South Park stepped in and lit the whole thing on fire. In a single episode, the show torched everything fans have been whispering for years, that Disney's remakes aren't magical, they're political, that these modern updates don't honor the classics, they hijack them. And at the center of the wreckage, Rachel Zegler. She thought she was leading a revolution. What she didn't realize was that she'd become the face of everything fans were sick of. Before the chaos, Rachel Zegler was supposed to be Disney's next princess powerhouse, a breakout star from West Side Story, with a golden voice and a Hollywood-approved background.
Just last week, the media and the shill influencers were trying to do everything they could to save Snow White from being a complete and total flop in the box office, and they failed miserably. This movie is already a complete and total disaster, and it is so bad that now even the media has to admit.
The industry had her fast-tracked for fame, but the fairy tale fizzled the moment Rachel opened her mouth. Instead of winning hearts, she pushed buttons. Interviews meant to promote the film quickly turned into viral disasters. She bashed the original 1937 Snow White, called Prince Charming a stalker, and claimed the story was outdated and weird. Not exactly the love letter to Disney fans the studio was hoping for. Then came the infamous quote, the one that's now haunting her across social media. "Despite my flaws, people will wait in line to see me." But they didn't. They stayed home. Or worse, they lined up online to roast her. What was meant to be empowerment came off as arrogant. What was supposed to be progressive felt like preaching.
Snow White, the toe-curlingly terrible live-action remake, has bombed so hard at the box office that even Paul Tassi had to admit it. It got $43 million, and there are very few ways to spin that.
Fans didn't see a relatable star. They saw someone who thought she was bigger than the story itself. And nothing kills a fairy tale faster than ego. And just as audiences were growing tired of the lectures, South Park stepped in, holding up a mirror to everything Rachel represented, and smashing it to pieces, but that was just the beginning. When South Park dropped their latest episode, no one expected them to go full scorched earth on Disney. But they did. And they didn't hold back. The plot? A twisted dream sequence, where characters slowly realize that every beloved figure is being replaced, not for story reasons, not for magic, but to check boxes. A sharp jab at what they called systematic replacements, a clear shot at Disney's recent trend of swapping classic characters in favor of newer, more socially approved versions.
Go something like this.
Chicken
The timing couldn't have been more brutal. Just as Snow White was collapsing at the box office, South Park dragged it into the spotlight as the poster child of everything that's gone wrong with Hollywood. At one point, a character literally asks, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse? And the answer? A shrug from the puppet masters behind the scenes, Disney stand-ins pulling the strings. That's when the message hit. This isn't about creativity. It's about control. The entire episode felt like a direct punch to the face of Disney's reboot machine. And Rachel Zegler was the unspoken symbol of it all. Audiences ate it up. Memes flooded social media. People started pointing to Rachel's interviews as proof that South Park wasn't just being funny, they were being accurate, because it wasn't satire anymore. It felt like a documentary.
Snow White reviews are in. Snow White, how shall we say? Data points are in. Because we now know that it was a flop.
And as that episode went viral, so did the backlash. But Rachel wasn't done making it worse. Just days after South Park shredded Disney's Snow White, Rachel Zegler tried to reclaim the narrative with a TikTok. Big mistake. She strutted into a near-empty movie theater, holding her branded Snow White merch like it was a trophy, and confidently asked the cashier, 2 tickets, please. The guy behind the counter? Completely blank. He had no idea who she was or what movie she meant. And the awkward silence that followed was deafening. It was supposed to be cheeky, empowering, a wink at the haters. Instead, it came off like a delusional audition for a spotlight no one asked for. Rachel gave the camera a look like, duh, I'm the star of the movie.
It does seem like the media have got the throw her under the bus green light, though, when we're posting things like this. We're slagging her off behind the scenes, we're dropping all the information, and then reminding you of, her attacking the majority of the population of America when she posted F the Orange Man.
But the internet wasn't buying it. The video backfired instantly. TikTok users started stitching it with sarcastic captions like, main character syndrome in the wild, and when no one gets the memo that you're famous. Her crew, decked out in Snow White-themed popcorn buckets and matching cups, posed like they were on a red carpet, while the theater itself looked more like a ghost town. This wasn't a flex. It was a fumble. What Rachel thought would be a viral comeback moment turned into a full-blown meme, and not the flattering kind. The clip was everywhere, plastered across X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, fueling even more mockery in the wake of the South Park episode. People joked that the bouquet she clutched like an Oscar win was probably a pity gift, that her merch looked like it belonged in the clearance bin, that her icon energy was just embarrassing. And just like that, Rachel went from leading lady to late-night punchline. But the humiliation wasn't over, because the numbers were about to come in, and they told a story even worse than the memes.
You see yourself as the evil queen. You are not evil. You are not evil. You're a queen, but you're not evil. What was it like seeing yourself as the evil queen for the first time?
We did not see the clip.
If Rachel's TikTok moment was awkward, the numbers that followed were downright brutal. Disney poured over $250 million into Snow White. Add in another $150 to $200 million for global marketing. Then tack on a staggering $50 million in reshoots. All in, this was a $500 million gamble, meant to launch a franchise, sell merch, and prove Disney's modern vision could still print gold. Instead, it bombed. Hard. Opening weekend? A flat $43 million domestic. For comparison, Dumbo did better, with a smaller budget. The Little Mermaid? It pulled nearly $95 million out the gate. Snow White couldn't even get halfway there. Globally, the situation was even more dire. After its second weekend, total earnings stalled at $142 million. That's not just bad, that's catastrophic.
This thing was a disaster. It only made $43 million at the box office, which is really bad for a movie like this. I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but I want to tell you, Cinderella, which was a number of years ago, don't forget how much inflation has happened.
Industry analysts estimate Disney could lose upwards of $300 million on this film alone. Even the second weekend drop was a red flag, a 66% plunge that signaled audiences weren't just skipping the movie. They were actively avoiding it. Theaters were empty. Merch wasn't moving, and fans weren't defending Rachel. They were clowning her. The same people who once cheered her rise were now sharing GoFundMe memes to rescue her career. And just like that, Snow White transformed from a crown jewel to a case study in failure. The kind Hollywood boardrooms dissect with dread, because this wasn't just a flop. It was proof that the formula doesn't work anymore. And while the numbers were devastating, the real damage was just beginning. Because now even Hollywood insiders were starting to turn on Rachel Zegler. By now it wasn't just internet trolls or South Park fans turning on Rachel Zegler. Hollywood itself started backing away.
Like, it was a really, really, really bad flop. Now, things I do for you guys. I went to Snow White over the weekend. I took my kids. I'll tell you, I'm not sure who was more bored.
First came the subtle shade. Then came the public jabs. On March 30th, former race car driver turned political firebrand Danica Patrick reposted a viral video mocking Snow White's collapse. Her caption, just 2 words: bye-bye. Short, cold, and loud enough to echo across social media. The video accused Rachel of pushing corporate feminism, the kind that feels more like a marketing campaign than actual empowerment. It painted her as a symbol of Hollywood's obsession with politics over storytelling. And whether or not Danica meant it as personal, it definitely felt that way. Then came Megyn Kelly. The media host lit up Rachel on her show, slamming her for alienating audiences with her constant political takes. She didn't just question Rachel's performance. she questioned her entire persona. Kelly said Rachel's ego had grown bigger than her actual fan base.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There is a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
And audiences weren't showing up for lectures. They were showing up for magic. And Rachel forgot that. Behind the scenes, rumors started flying. Whispers claimed Disney had quietly dropped Rachel from 2 major upcoming projects, Toy Story 5 and the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot. Officially, nothing confirmed. But insiders say the backlash was too hot, and the studio didn't want to gamble twice. And just to twist the knife, even celebrity endorsements started aging like milk. Pedro Pascal called her an icon in an interview on March 31st. Fans? Not impressed. They dragged him in the comments for jumping on a sinking ship way too late. The tide had turned. Rachel Zegler was no longer the rising star. She was radioactive. The industry that once backed her was now quietly distancing itself. But the most explosive fallout? That came from inside the cast itself. As if the box office disaster and media backlash weren't enough, the tension behind the scenes made everything worse. And at the center of it all was Gal Gadot.
So did you go directly from West Side? Like, did you have to audition for Snow White, or like, oh, they saw you in West Side Story, they're like, you're Snow White?
West Side Story was kind of nowhere near coming out. We were about like 6 months away from release, and no footage had been seen.
On paper, Rachel Zegler and Gal were supposed to be the dream duo. Snow White and the Evil Queen, classic fairy tale rivals with star power to spare. But off camera, things got icy fast. It started as subtle shade. Reports from the set hinted at awkward energy during press events, stiff smiles, zero chemistry. Then came the Oscars. Rachel, standing on stage, took a not-so-subtle jab at Gal, calling her a pageant queen during a red carpet interview. Fans caught it instantly, and the internet lit up. The tension was no longer rumor. It was on display. Then came the geopolitical firestorm. Rachel posted about Palestine. Gal, an outspoken supporter of Israel and former IDF soldier, became the unintended target of online fury. The clash wasn't just uncomfortable, it was explosive. The situation escalated so quickly that Disney reportedly had to assign Gal extra security after receiving threats. From fairy tale to full-blown feud, the drama between the leads became impossible to ignore. Insiders claimed filming was tense. Rachel, already frustrated with reshoots and the film's direction, allegedly got irritated when Gal kept messing up her lines. Meanwhile, fans on social media began turning on Gal too, calling her the real poison apple of the film.
Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I'm not going to ask about Thanksgiving traditions. Everybody asks those. I just have one important question to ask you, and it's extremely important. Okay. And there is a wrong answer here. So no pressure, do you call it dressing or stuffing?
Stuffing.
It was chaos on all sides. And Disney, once confident in its casting choices, now had a public relations nightmare on its hands. 2 leads, both controversial in their own ways, both drowning in internet drama, and no way to steer the ship back, on course. What was supposed to be a feminist reimagining turned into a toxic battlefield of egos, politics, and passive-aggressive press tours. And while Gal's performance wasn't winning any awards, it was Rachel's attitude that many blamed for sinking the whole thing. But this wasn't just about a feud between co-stars. It was a symptom of something much bigger. And it had Disney scrambling for damage control. Rachel Zegler's disaster wasn't just her problem anymore. It became Hollywood's wake-up call. Inside Disney, the panic was immediate. Executives reportedly brought in a full-time media handler just to monitor Rachel's online activity. One Variety report described it as a meltdown years in the making. Behind the scenes, staff were scrambling to contain her interviews, her social posts, and the nuclear-level backlash attached to her name. But the damage was already done, and other studios took notice. Whispers started swirling that upcoming remakes like Lilo and Stitch were being quietly rewritten to dial back the politics. Casting decisions were being reevaluated. Even discussions about avoiding trans actors in lead roles began surfacing, not out of malice, but from sheer fear of backlash and financial failure. And it wasn't just Disney feeling the pressure. Studio insiders say this one flop has reshaped the entire approach to modern reboots.
Right? So she would like to also enjoy the privilege of making sure that you're going to come to theaters to keep her relationships with the executives that give her the jobs so that she never has to touch her own door handles. Good. She wants to manage those relationships. So she's now asking you to accept her lame-ass apology.
Test screenings are now hyper-focused on audience sentiment around tone, especially anything that feels too preachy. Several in-development projects have been paused or reworked in the wake of Snow White's disaster. Hollywood was no longer asking, how do we make this more empowering? Now the question was, how do we make sure this doesn't end up like Snow White? Because Rachel didn't just ruin a remake, she scared the industry straight. The age of girl boss monologues, TikTok promo stunts, and activist interviews is starting to fade. Studios are quietly shifting back to safer, apolitical storytelling. Not because they've changed their values, but because audiences stopped showing up. And nothing speaks louder in Hollywood than silence at the box office. But while the industry scrambled, one question still lingered. Was Rachel Zegler just a scapegoat, or was she the final straw? Rachel Zegler didn't just star in a flop. She became the warning label for an industry that lost touch. What started as a fairy tale reboot spiraled into a storm of ego, politics, and backlash. She thought she could preach her way to icon status. Instead, she alienated fans, tanked a $250 million film, and left Disney scrambling for answers. But this wasn't just about Rachel. It was a message to all of Hollywood. Audiences are done with lectures. They don't want moral lessons disguised as movies. They want heart, not hashtags. Now, studios are rethinking everything, from casting to scripts to how much woke they're willing to gamble on. Rachel's legacy? Not a girl boss, not a hero. Just a harsh reminder that if you forget your audience, they'll forget you too. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.